Could you pull it off? Could you sort of pull it off?
Not for a long time, no.
Yeah.
I could pull off Hanson though. That was another band I love.
Which one? Which did you play the whole album?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. There was no such thing as singles back then. You got the whole record.
Well, if you were going to own it, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I would say with that band though, they were definitely a hit singles band.
Yeah, for sure.
Mbop Yearbook was the other one, right? I don't know if I could name a third.
Yeah. Where's the Love?
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, or good night, depending on where you are, what time of day it is. How are you? How the heck are you? Good to be back. It's been a couple of weeks. I moved to this bi-weekly schedule because it's easier for me to manage with all the production and promo stuff. But you also, it's got the effect of kind of taking you out of the zone. I was thinking about this yesterday. As I was thinking about recording the intros for this, in my old apartment, we bought a house last year, and so I'm talking to you from my basement studio, kind of looking out the window, and it feels like I'm spying on the neighborhood, whereas my old place, I was looking down over the bay, felt like I was broadcasting over the radio waves to the world. Anyhow, I hope you're well. Things are very, very crazy all over the place. To do our part to counteract that here at Hitmaker Industries, we've got a fun episode here for you. We're talking to Isaias Gil, drummer for Black Flag, among many others. We'll get to that in just a moment. Right now, it's time for me to plug my stuff, right? I put out a new single under the band name Sunnyside Uppers. I just put out a video on the weekend. It was a pretty fun little project. It was recorded during quarantine back in May for a quarantine compilation my brother was putting out, but things got really dark, and we decided that was not the time to release this particular project, so it got shelved for a few months. Anyhow, it came out on Bandcamp under his label/YouTube channel, Lost Opus. Anyhow, it's a compilation, 12 songs, a bunch of cool indie bands on there, and it's music that was written and recorded in quarantine. So my song is a quick little minute-and-a-half long punk song. I played all the instruments and did a video where I dressed up in 4 different costumes as different band members. So the video just came out over the weekend, edited by my good friend and former bandmate, Gavin McLean. It's pretty fun. You can check it out on my site, learndrums.ca. Sunnyside Uppers, of course, being a pun on the fact that I am too old, making the wrong kind of music in the middle of nowhere. That being St. John, New Brunswick, Canada. And that song's on Bandcamp for now. I'm going to talk to Micah and see if he's okay with me putting it on Spotify, etc. The compilation itself is a fundraiser. All proceeds go to the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal. It's only $5. You should check it out. Did I mention that website? learndrums.ca. If you click on the blog post titled Snowboatin', you'll find it. You know what else you're going to find there? Show notes for this episode. It was really cool getting to talk to Isaias. I don't want to spill the beans too much. I hope he's okay with me using that clip as an intro. I think it's good to have a little hook, a little something universal to grab people. What I was going to mention about Spotify is that the one song I have up there right now is the theme song for this show, which is called Panic, which happens to be, you ready for this? The original name of American punk band Black Flag. This part you're hearing right now, the bridge, Well, my friends, it's got a line that includes the words. Oh, it's not where's the love. It's where's all the love. Layers, my friends. Synchronicities. Are we experiencing something right now that's meant to be? Are we living through the end times? It's not for me to say. What is for me to say that I think you're going to enjoy this conversation? I certainly did. I'm almost out of time. So please check learndrums.ca for show notes. Follow Learn Drums on Instagram. Oh, I'm going to put a post about this in the main feed, which is a little bit different for me. I cleaned it up. I made it only my little drum lesson clips, but I'm going to put all the podcast episodes on there. Anyway, Learn Drums on Instagram. Isaias is Isaias Gil on Instagram. Check out learndrums.ca for all the links. All right, here we go. All right. Thanks for being here.
Oh, man, thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. Where are you right now?
I'm in Houston. Came out to a park, maybe do a little exercise before we get a tropical storm coming in. So trying to...
Really?
Yeah, it's supposed to come in this weekend. So maybe, hang out here before it comes in.
Totally enjoy it. I was swimming in a lake like just over an hour ago.
Nice, man.
Yeah, same kind of thing. What is a tropical storm like? Is that normal for this time of year down there?
Yeah. Tropical storms and hurricane season, all that stuff. So just kind of what ends up happening. And it's always raining here during the week. So
Is it? It's always foggy here. It's like rain a lot too, but that's why like the sunshine, when it peeks through, you gotta take advantage.
Totally, yeah.
What are you doing for exercise in the park?
Right now, just some running mainly.
Okay.
There are pull-up bars, but just with everything going on, kind of steering away.
Yeah.
Do some push-ups and body work at home, but for the most part, just out here jogging.
Yeah, fair enough. Are you a gym guy?
No, I'm not. I didn't really work out much till this. So just being on the road and getting to play drums kind of kept the cardio up. I did jump rope before shows to get the cardio going and just get in a good headspace. But that was about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No gym membership for me.
Right. It's a thing. I mean, I have one just as a way to stay in shape. I'm not like a workout guy necessarily, but I find, I have wrist issues. Do you have anything like that? Or are you like...
I did. Yeah. I've had wrist issues. And then I had a gnarly accident. I don't know if you could see, but I have a scar right here.
Oh, yeah, sort of.
So I sliced my hand open the first time I was in snow from up here all the way down, pretty far down. And so I had to...
Sorry, I'm smiling. I don't mean to like...
No, it's totally cool. I have to had to learn how to reuse my thumb. So that was a big issue.
No kidding. You say the first time you were in snow, where were you?
In New York. Yeah.
Okay.
And it was crazy. I was mesmerized by the snow and jumping everywhere and jumping fences to try to get places. And then I ended up slipping on black ice, walking back to the hotel room. Totally lame, nothing cool. Just, I can't walk.
Oh no. Did you wipe out? Did you like hurt like leg muscles or anything like that too?
No, just took out my thumb.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it was, I fell down. It was so cold and happened so quickly. I got up, put my hands back in my jacket pocket, kept walking, had no idea it had happened up until I don't know, a few minutes later, I realized my hand was really hot. And when I went to go look, the thumb was
covered
just
in blood.
Yeah, falling to the side.
Awful.
So, yeah.
That sucks,
Crazy
man.
times.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I don't think so. No. It was years ago, but no wrist issues.
Yeah. I don't know what brought it on. I don't know if it's like just like bad drum technique or like doing push-ups when I shouldn't have been, or
Oh yeah.
something else. We get full on winter here. I'm up in Canada, so we get
Okay.
like it's like yeah, full on like
That's
snow
awesome.
and ice. So sometimes,
Yeah, well, I say it's awesome because out in Houston we get like hot or hotter.
yeah, right. Okay, so let's start there. Are you from Houston originally? Also, sorry, this is maybe an ignorant question I was going to ask
it's all good.
before I turned on the record, but here we are. Isaias, how do you pronounce your last name?
Gil.
Gil.
Yeah, Isaias Gil.
Cool.
And thanks for getting my first name right too, man. I've gotten all sorts of things. So.
Oh, I bet you
Yeah.
have. Yeah. Any relation to Vince?
No, that would be cool though. I think
Yeah.
he has a double L.
I think he does too.
Yeah.
That was a
would be
joke
cool.
I had worked up. Cool. All right, so you're from Houston, Texas.
Originally from Acapulco, Mexico. Yeah.
Cool.
And moved here when I was a baby, man. Well, I didn't move here. I was forced to be here. So
Right.
yeah, but I was 3
But you
years so
stayed?
when. Yeah, I didn't really have a choice. And then when I did have a choice, I ended up staying anyway. So
Mm-hmm. What prompted the move, if you don't mind my asking, or is it like ancient history?
it was just family. All ended up finding work here and liking it here.
How
It's a
far
good
is
community.
cool? How far is Houston from the border?
About maybe 9 hours. 9,
Okay,
10
so
hours.
it's not close.
No.
I've never been to Texas. I know like El Paso's a border town, right?
Yeah. In El Paso, like you could, if you're on the major freeway, you can look and Mexico's right there and like Texas is right there. So yeah, if you have a strong arm, you could probably throw a football into Mexico or vice
Wild.
versa. Yeah.
I don't have a particularly strong arm. I don't think I don't think I have a straight spiral either.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess you need more than just a strong arm. It was a bad example. Sorry.
No, it's great. I'm all right. I'm digressing. I like to like in my head, I want to be linear, but then I like see a shiny object of conversation.
Dude. Yeah, no, same here. And you got to reel me back in because I'll go.
All right.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
That's good. That's what we're here for. That's what the people came for. Okay, so you grew up in Houston then?
I did. Yeah.
From an early age.
Yeah, and I love it here, man. It's got a really cool community. Tons of music. You can, any day of the week when there's not a pandemic going down, you've got like your jazz place or your rockabilly or your hip hop, whatever you want, it's happening here. And it's really understated. I really dig it.
Well, it's interesting because if I were to think of one music town in Texas, it would be Austin because of the festivals and whatever.
Yeah.
Because of South by and Austin City Limits or whatever. But I also just have never been. How big a city is Houston?
I would be lying if I told you any number of people because I'm terrible at that. But it's bigger than Austin.
Yeah.
It's pretty major, and it's like the oil and gas and energy capital. So it's got a lot of people, and the weird part, like Austin has a prominent music scene and tons of bars and all that, but everyone thinks of Austin for that, and so a lot of the musicians will go there and kind of like try to outshine each other for the gig or something, for that spot. I swear here, there's so much and it's so spread out that everyone, it's really more of a, hey, if you're cool and you didn't blow it on this gig and you didn't act like a jerk to that guy, here's this gig and it's happening every Wednesday and it's yours.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's super cool.
It's kind of all you can ask for as a musician.
It really is, yeah. And to be able to, and to be able to work from it and make a living, super sweet.
Yeah, totally. I would say it's similar. I live in an oil town too. I'm in St. John, New Brunswick, so on the east coast of Canada, and we have the country's largest oil refinery, not too far from here. But the oil company's the major employer in town, and so it's interesting. Like that, you definitely feel that presence. It is a smaller city. But I would say here on the East Coast, and I think it's more. I don't know. There's a sense of community. I think there maybe just are not there's not as much opportunity as you would find in a bigger center, someplace like Toronto, where it's more competitive within Canada. So people everybody's trying to make it work. Everybody is. Everybody knows what it's like. Everybody gets it. And the other thing that I find, I always found interesting gigging around here anyway, is that once you start getting out and working, you don't really get to stick within your genre and be a snob about it, because you just end up, being put on bills with different people that I might not, seek out.
Yeah.
But you're all doing the same thing.
Yeah. No, that's all, and that's what helps you grow as a musician. It's being placed in those situations where maybe you were going in expecting this pop rock thing, and here comes a blues shuffle,
Sure.
and you're like, oh, okay, or hey man, this has a swing feel, but can you keep it straight? You're like, what? No.
And then you just get that no, not like that.
Yeah. No, it's the other swing.
Right.
And I'm
yeah.
like, the other, well, hey, it's just quarter notes on the bride, and
but make it swing.
Yeah. But then when you get it, you're like, oh, there it is.
It's this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's an interesting thing, the way, just in general, non-drummers describe drum things. I remember filling in for a band, some friends of mine a few years ago, but one of the guitarists was describing a fill in one part to me, and he's like, it sounds kind of tumbling down, everything just explodes. And I was like, I listened to the recording, I was like, oh, triplets.
Yeah. Just tumbling down.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Triplets around the kit.
Yeah, the fruit of the loom, Phil.
What's that one?
Fruit of the loom. Fruit of the loom. And
the one I heard was bucket of fish for that.
Yeah, bucket of fish. Yeah. There's so many, but yeah. Hey man, can you sound like you're not tripping down the stairs? And I'm like, what? He's like, it just sounds like puddles. Puddle. And I'm like, oh, you don't like my foot in between the toms. So you just want straight tom. Not puddles.
Of course.
Yeah. But I think if you're able to take those things, analyze them, and get it right, I feel like you should be able to understand psychology or something, because it's really taking someone's how they interpret things emotionally or whatever, and then you're like, oh, you mean this is going to be an extra 20, this is for your therapy session. I had to translate this for you.
$20. Yeah. It's got to be worth more than that.
Well, we'll start there. That's per thing you have to guess.
Right, sure, yeah.
If you started with puddles, you're going to come out an extra 100 on top before the night is over.
Well, it's funny too, whatever, people come to music from all kinds of different backgrounds, so
sure.
But I always find it funny, as somebody who does have a bit of a theoretical background, to not understand that stuff, or even simple things. I remember a friend of mine filled in for a band one time, and they're like, yeah, in this section, I think he hits the kick drum I think it's 32 times. And he's like, oh, it's quarter notes for 8 bars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Oh, if you had to count to 32.
Yeah, I've had it to where a classically trained musician was asked, and I'm on percussion, and they were asked to play a rock feel. and just turns around, stone cold, like, what does that mean? I was like, what do you mean? What does a rock feel mean? Like, you do this for a living, but it's weird how you have to approach certain people or how you have to describe things to them,
Would that be because it's so regimented in that world or is it just like out of the frame of reference?
I wouldn't know how to guess it. I think it was something more than what I was hearing probably, but it just took me by surprise because I've seen on music, rock Phil or, whatever. And it's just, yeah, there's notation, but it's very specific on the description, on top of the bar. So I wouldn't know why that would be offensive or not, but I just kind of stayed out of it. I was like, oh man, this is awkward. Mom and dad are arguing at the dinner table.
Well, yeah, it is funny, like because there is a certain, I don't know, it's like hitting the drums hard or something. Like there is a certain attitude that can be lack. I know I've certainly seen like the symphony and the guy is playing the drum kit and like just wish that he was hitting it a little harder. But I think it's like, if you're playing sensitive classical music and you got to have a light touch and you don't want to overpower an orchestra because you got a snare drum or something like.
Right. Yeah.
So, Isaias Gil, how'd you start playing drums?
It was by accident. I think like as a kid, I got pictures where I'm like holding a drum or, setting up pots and pans. I think most every kid does that. I did it, but I didn't come into kit or actual drum set until I was 15 or 16 and just kind of fell in love with it from the get-go. I always would watch the drummer. He just looked like the coolest dude ever. His feet were moving, his hands were moving, his hair was just the coolest out of everyone in the band.
Right.
Like everything about the drummer was cool.
He's got the funnest instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just it demanded so much control that it was just it just captured me. And so I jumped into it, borrowed a kit, and just started wailing to CDs. And I would set the CD player behind me, and it was this old boombox. And I'd have to set it up at a certain distance so that it wouldn't skip. It was before the anti-skip stuff.
Yeah.
Or if it was the tape, close enough to where I could rewind it. But it was a fun time, man. And then I had the over-the-ear flat Sony headphones that a little bit of sweat got into and everything just distorted. It was really fun.
Did they block out sound at all?
No way. No, and I was playing in my garage, my family's garage. So just all that sweat, everything, just an echo chamber, and here I am, like Rick Astley trying to, jam on it.
So that was my next question. What were you playing along with at that time?
Well, okay, so there was some of that. My uncle was into that, and I was digging everything that he had been into. But there was also like some Sting in there. So I was trying to emulate things that were like in 5 or in 7, and I had no idea. I just knew this is what the song was doing. So it was a cool thing not to know.
It's a good skill. And then you're not trying to intellectualize it. You're just trying to play it.
Yeah. I was just trying to mimic. I knew what the snare sounded like. I knew that like 7 Days, still one of my favorite songs ever, had the bell, just pulsing in 4, but the song isn't. So trying to play that dun-it, so that fast 5 over that 4,
Okay, I can't think. I know that. I'm sure I've heard it, but I can't think of it right now.
So
is it Vinny like, Colaiuta?
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. and trying to play, the bass drum and all that. Oh man, I had no idea. I was, just a flub. But
could you pull it
loved
off?
it.
Could you sort of pull it off?
Not for a long time, no. Yeah. I could pull off Hanson though. That was another band I love.
Which one? Which did you play the whole album?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. There's no such thing as singles back then. You got the whole record.
Well, if you were gonna own it, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I would say with that band though, they were definitely a hit singles band.
Yeah, for sure.
Mbop Yearbook was the other one, right? I don't know if I could name a third.
Yeah. Where's the Love?
Right.
Yeah.
What year would this be? Sounds like mid to
90,
late 90s.
Yeah, 99, 98, 99. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's super, super fun developing time for me, just to jump into music and to really dive into different things that I had no idea what I was doing.
Right. Yeah, I would say we're about the same age. In that case, I definitely remember that era, and even playing with I remember I had we had a boombox, and it was I don't think it was a Sony, it was a Panasonic, and I had my Walkman or Discman headphones, and there was no isolation. Playing in a concrete basement, you just had to turn it up as loud as it would go, so that you could hear it over your drums.
Yeah.
Do you have any hearing loss now?
What?
Do you?
No, I don't have. Yeah, sorry. I don't have hearing loss, but I do battle tinnitus or tinnitus. I was told it was. I don't know.
I've heard that too. I have it. I say tinnitus.
Yeah. So a friend of mine was like, "You have tinnitus," and I'm like, I hear things. Sometimes it's a squeal. Sometimes it's really high pitched and like piercing.
Yeah.
It took a little while for me to try to get used to it to go to sleep. But then it ended up working out whenever I would travel because it was like my own little noise machine in my head.
Right.
So I have my own traveling white noise.
That's interesting. Well, so one thing I've heard about it is because I remember I have it too, and it's not from playing. I don't think it's from music. It was a result of a car accident. And actually, speaking of black ice, when I was in high school, flipped my parents' truck, my dad's truck, on an icy road.
Dude.
And it was intense. It was I had Bell's palsy. Do you know what that is?
No, but it sounds intense.
Half of my face was paralyzed for a month. And they're like, there's an 80% chance you'll make a full recovery. It's 80 is not enough. Yeah, it was intense, but it's fine. I recovered, but so the tiny bones inside your ear, the hammer, the anvil, the stirrup, whatever, they became separated in my right ear. And so I have tinnitus as a result of that.
Oh, man.
But it's the same thing, going to sleep is that's when it really would drive me crazy sometimes. And so they say put on static.
Yeah.
I was really, you start researching a little bit and anything I could find, it's no, there's no cure. Just try to ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just try to ignore it. I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
Great.
Yeah.
For the rest of my life.
Yeah. It's someone turn off that TV,
Wild. So mine is always just a high pitch thing, but an octave or two up.
Yeah. So mine will come in like that.
Yeah.
And then just it gets super loud and then it goes away. But then there's this constant just like wind, just happening. So, but I don't know that I got used to it. I'm still very, very aware of it. But it was a thing. I can hear well. Sometimes I hear things I don't want to hear, but yeah, that's the craziest part.
Yeah. My younger brother has got a condition and I don't know if it's that, but he has to he's got a recording of pink noise that he'll just listen to sometimes. Okay. Yeah. And it was in his case, It was just like one day.
Man, yeah.
He was a drummer. He had to quit playing.
Oh, really? Because of it?
Yeah.
Dang. Yeah, I have an app that I use that's like a sound machine. But then the hard part is I memorize the patterns. So then I can't go to sleep. And even though it's just like, if it's raindrops, right?
Right.
I know when it's going to switch and loop back. So then I'm focusing on that. It's not that it's like a meter thing or a beat. It's just, I'm like, oh, here comes the switch. And then, I'm back to it. So it's weird.
That's almost more interesting once you get comfortable to playing with like rhythmic loops than to like listen to the rain or something and like try and figure out that pattern.
Yeah.
How long is the loop? Is it a few seconds or is it like quite a long one?
It's like a minute 30.
Gotcha.
But you hear the gradual change. Whoever recorded it was like, it's really cool. I like it up until I figured out the pattern.
Right.
And I'm like, got to find something else.
How many different patterns does it have?
It's one constant growth. And then once you could hear the raindrops like really build. And to me, now it sounds like a crescendo, on toms, but you hear it on the leaves. It's like, shh. And then there's a small little clip that it's not even a millisecond. It's just like, I hear it and I'm like, here it comes again, but it's this build and then cut and then right back to it. So, yeah.
That's so funny, man.
Yeah, it's a trip.
Yeah, musicians, you can't
I
enjoy
don't know
anything.
What it is.
Can't enjoy listening to anything. Well, I'm always picking apart. What's funny, we were listening to the new Taylor Swift album just
it just came out last night, right?
Have you heard it?
No. But I saw that it was coming out.
Yeah, are you a fan?
I've heard a couple of songs. I've played in a cover band, like a party band here in town, a few years ago, and they played everything like as it was recorded. So I had to learn some parts, and I was like, oh, this is actually kind of cool. Like,
Shake It Off is a cool groove.
Yeah. So there's things like that I've appreciated, but I can't name a tune.
Yeah, I'm not like really a fan. Well, it's funny because we were listening to it and it got 3 or 4 songs in, and my wife asked me what I thought of it, and I was like, I don't even listen to it in those terms. It's like, to me, it's like, this is like the vanguard of pop music right now, and so I listen for that. Like, what is she up to?
Yeah.
But I don't really think about whether I like the songs or not in the same. But I mean, I think that also is a product. Like, I wouldn't be thinking in those terms if it really spoke to me, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I stopped listening to music in that way a little while ago. Just kind of as you're describing how it speaks to you, like what it represents in that period in time, and then why. Rather than, oh, this song sucks. It's like, well, why? Why does it suck? Because you don't like it? Like, why don't you like it? And then opening up to that.
Yeah. And that is the reason. And it, I definitely also, it's like, I'm sure you do too. It's like, I have friends who, depending who I'm talking to, like, Radiohead's the greatest band ever, or Radiohead is terrible, I don't know how anyone could listen to them. Yeah. And it's like nothing to do with the band, and everything to do with someone's opinion. And then it's true, like, once you open up to that, and I think there is a certain freedom in it, like, especially for people who aren't musicians, they're like, I don't care, I like it or I don't, like, it doesn't matter what it is. But it also is like, at the very least, if something has made it to your ears, like, the person who wrote it, the person who recorded it, the person who put it out, all thought that it was worth pursuing. Yeah. So to just dismiss it as like, it sucks is like, I don't know. I still do it, but
I catch myself. Like, and I don't know if I should say this, so if you want to cut it out, you can. But,
we are not shy with the Clippers here.
I'm not a big fan of the Beatles.
Really?
like I understand their period. I
Yep.
understand what they did. Matter of fact, what's that? Come Together? Because I was so removed from it. I thought Come Together was like a soft Led Zeppelin thing.
Or like
And-
there's an Aerosmith version.
Yeah, but I just heard that doom doom and I'm like, oh man, this Led Zeppelin tune's kind of, and I got so many dirty looks. I was like, oh my bad,
that's
yeah, it was weird.
It's funny. I remember like being in high school, and so there's this local band Sloan, which I don't know if you would ever heard of down there. Their heyday was kind of in the 90s, but they still do it. They put out a record last 2 years ago, and they did like a U.S. tour, but they'd be playing clubs. But anyhow, they are like very indebted to the Beatles. And I remember somebody got me a copy of the White Album when I was in high school, and I put it on, and I was like, it sounds like Sloan with shitty recordings. Like, I just couldn't listen to it for years.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's one of those things. I get their importance if you're a fan, and like, especially fans are like, you don't know what they did for music. I'm like, nah, music would have happened anyway.
Sure,
like,
yeah, they didn't invent it.
Yeah, it would have happened. But I did get into other stuff, just kind of following the rabbit hole of the Beatles.
Mm-hmm.
I like George Harrison stuff.
Interesting. I've never gone deep, but I know that All Things Must Pass is like a legendary album.
I dig it for the most part. I dig what I just.
What are you into of his?
The sitar stuff, like anything with it that's like super trippy. I'm like, all right, I could just, because it's so far removed from the poppy,
sure,
Beatles stuff that I was told was his writing.
Yeah.
And I didn't really follow. Yeah.
I thought so the thing that got me into the Beatles, if you ever want an intro point, maybe this is just like my own boring story, but I got from the library the like coffee table book of the Beatles anthology, and I read it one summer. And I found this story so interesting that my sister had a copy of Abbey Road, and I put it on one night, and I was like, this is amazing. But up to that point, I didn't really care. I think I liked them when I was younger, and then I wasn't into it. But whatever.
Yeah, dude, I'll give it a shot. Yeah.
Well, they also, though, have had their day. It's like I used to get really, like, if somebody didn't like a thing that I liked, I would like really be kind of sensitive about it, and I still probably am. I think everybody is to some degree, but it also is like the Beatles don't need another fan, like.
Well, and I'm not dissing him or anything like it. Just doesn't move me like it moves others. But I will say I admire Ringo's playing because of his left hand lead.
It's interesting, isn't it?
And that space that he leaves, like I play right-handed, so my fills start right, left.
Same.
When I start hearing his stuff, I'm like, why is there that gap? And then realizing he starts left, right.
Yeah.
And then moves, or coming back down on the crash with his left hand. And trying to emulate that has helped me with other fills, like, in different genres of music, like going all the way around the kit and then ending on the floor tom, but needing to come back over to the left side of the kit. So I'll crash on with my left hand.
Yeah.
And that's all like, just trying to learn how to play with that space like Ringo.
Well, I find his thing is interesting, and like I've tried to learn his fills and they never sound right when I play them.
Yeah. I probably I'm butchering them all up when I try to play them too, but I dig that space.
Yeah, I like Ringo. He's a groovy cat. I don't whatever, but he's also fun. He's like refuses to sign fan mail or objects at this point.
Oh, really?
He put out a statement a few years ago. Yeah. A podcast I listened to. Did you ever listen to The Best Show with Tom Sharpling?
Mm-mm.
Anyway,
I
whatever.
haven't.
They've got a clip they like to play to like. I don't know if it's making fun of the guy if you're just playing his own voice saying that, but they were not impressed with this policy of his. But anyway, he made an announcement. He's like, please, as of this date, I'm no longer like signing and returning things. Thank you for everything. I'm just done. And
Whoa.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, I guess he felt he met his quota.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not a problem I've ever had, but
Yeah, same.
yeah. All right. So how'd you start playing in bands? How'd you move to I'm going to like drag it back to the garage and jamming with the boombox. How did you make the leap from playing with CDs to playing with other humans?
Man, it was weird. Within a year of starting playing in the garage, maybe less than a year, I got asked by this guy, great guitarist. He was like, hey, dude, do you want to play drums on my record? And all I'd done up to that point was play in the garage to CDs.
How did he know that you played?
My mom was attending this church, and I got up, I think after the service was done, I was just like goofing around talking to the drummer, and he heard me play. And I don't know if it was because he knew that I was a kid and was probably going to be super cheap.
Yeah.
or if he was just, I don't know what it was, but he was super sweet, gave me a shot, and he paid me buying my, his music was a little heavier. And so I was like, oh, I don't have a double pedal. He had drums programmed. And I was like, I can't play that with one foot, and I don't have a double pedal. And he was like, well, I'll buy you one, and that will be your payment for the recording. And I was like, all right.
Amazing as a kid. I get to be on a record and I get a double pedal.
Yeah. And so that kind of led, it was just kind of this little train thing.
Yeah.
It led me.
1 second. So did you go to like, I don't know if like rock church is like a bad term, but you know what I mean? Like drum set church. I didn't. That's why I'm asking.
No, I did.
I went to like choir church.
Yeah. Well, I grew up with my grandparents in the Catholic church.
Yeah. We're same.
Yeah. So it was mass, very sacred, just super, super chill. But my mom was partier, man. She went to rock church.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's like that's something that I'd never seen it in action until a couple of years ago, and I was just staying at a friend's place, and I heard it was like a Sunday morning, and I was just like out for a walk, and the streets were kind of quiet, and I heard this band playing. I was like, what is going on? It's like 10 a.m. on a Sunday. And then I saw it was like summer. They had the doors open of this church. I couldn't believe that's where it was coming from.
No, man. Like now I still play at a church when I'm in town. And it's so well organized. It's such a production. There's loops. There's, everyone's playing to a click. The lights and the lyrics, and there's this one gentleman here in town, amazing percussionist, and he's a guru in Ableton, and so he gets hired to play perc, but he runs two laptops. One of them runs all the stems with a click for the band, and then the other one is daisy chained and is running all of the lights and the screens in the background with the lyrics.
Wild. So, all off of Ableton?
All off of Ableton. Yeah. It's all, he has MIDI triggers set up. So everything's just picking up as it's going. And the way he has it broken down, like if he wants to go back into, or if the singer wants to go back into a verse or a double chorus where there isn't one, it's just like right there, one click away, and he's exactly where they want him to be.
Wild.
Yeah. So I didn't go to that kind of church, but enough to where there was, some live instrumentation. Yeah. And I went, did this recording thing, and everyone was expecting me to be nervous, but I'd listened to the music and it wasn't as complicated as the other stuff I was listening to. So, we started tracking, and I think we did like 5 songs in one evening, maybe like 6-7 hours. And then I just started getting work at the studio because that was pretty quick.
Right.
And
who ran the studio?
it was a gentleman here in town, Alan Roth, and I'm not sure what he's up to. Haven't talked to him in years, but he just kind of just kept calling me, and different projects would come up, and just I got to do that. And
Was he a producer, or was he an engineer who would like find people, or what?
both. He would get hired mainly to engineer, but he would produce. And yeah, sorry, just got super windy.
Oh, it's okay.
And just he would let me be part of it, and it was super cool to have that, and to have that experience, and just to network in that way.
Totally. Especially to go from like playing in your garage to like being a studio guy.
Yeah, it was super fun. I remember my family was they are hard workers and always have been, and we're like, you gotta go to school and do this, and I wanted to be a pediatrician. Like that was my goal. And then I got into music, and it's like, I'll get to that later. And then finally, when a check would come in the mail, they'd look at it and be like, "Oh, proud of you, keep pursuing it."
Oh, good.
I was like, yes.
But that is the thing, right? Like classically, it's like you got to have a backup plan, and it's not because it's not. It's like easy to interpret that as like, oh, you don't believe in me, but it's just concern.
Yeah. And what was weird is I've never had the mentality of a backup plan. I always felt, and I don't knock anyone that does. I all power to them. And oftentimes, like right now during this pandemic, I'm like, I probably should have had something, in the back pocket. But I was always just after it, and I felt like if there was a backup plan, then I wouldn't have the need to drive this much.
I think so, totally, because the backup plan takes time and commitment too.
Yeah.
The thing that I always found too, because you hit bumps in the road, and people are like, "Would you ever think about doing anything else?" And to me, it always seemed like, well, so I'm just going to pick a career at random, like instead of this thing that I'm like very into and very dedicated to. I'm just going to like throw a dart. That's how I felt anyway.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, and I mean, I don't deter anyone. I have a couple of students online that will talk about what they should go to school for, and I'm like, I don't know, get a business degree. You're always going to use that,
Yep.
Like I'm not against it. I just didn't do it.
No, I considered going to business after my band broke up. Like I considered going to business school because it would be good to understand those things.
Yeah. And you could use it anywhere. You could use it as an individual. You could use it, in a band setting. Like it doesn't lose its value.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know about it sounds like your experience was maybe a little different, but certainly like I was in a band. So I went to music school. I went to like a university in a jazz program, and it was sort of like I grew up in a small town and like didn't know what else to do. I just knew I wasn't going to stick around home.
Yeah.
I would have loved to just start a band with some friends of mine, but they were all going off to university, and so I figured I should do that too. But I ended up starting an indie band with a couple of guys that I knew from music school, and we were just completely clueless when it came to the business. Like, and you don't understand how much it kind of hobbles you, especially because at that age, and it's like you're used to not having to worry about it. Maybe you got a bit of an attitude about how good you think you are,
right?
So you just expect that it should work out financially, and then there are dollars and cents that need to be figured out, and like if you're going on tour, there are considerations there. It's not just like we're going to book these shows and that'll be it.
Yeah. The logistics of it and everything that goes into play,
Yeah.
it's a business,
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and yeah, I've had that conversation before, and it took a lot of falling flat on my face to learn some of those lessons.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, as much as it is a business, I love seeing people passionate about it and how much we will put up and tolerate because we love this so much.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it also, like, it's a business because it has to be, and we live in a society that uses money. But
Yeah.
I personally, and maybe I'll eat these words someday, but it's like, if we could just get rid of money somehow and things could just still be cool.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to worry about it. I could just like barter for my services or whatever. I would be fine with it.
Yeah. No, that would be a dope way of living.
Wouldn't it? Yeah. Okay. So you're getting studio gigs around Houston. Are you playing live at all at this time?
Some some of the artists were asking for me to play live with them, and it all just kind of snowballed. It again, going back to Houston being such a cool and tight community.
Yeah.
The music circle, just like I'm finding it is this way in most every city with a music scene. It's very tight. There's a handful of musicians that know every musician.
That's what I like. Every scene is a local scene. That's what I found too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, the more I started working at the studio, then I started playing live a little bit, and I didn't really have much of an ego. I just wanted to take on whatever new challenge. Like, I remember right after that, I went from the heavy rock double bass drum album, and like a year later doing this traditional Brazilian, samba type vibe.
Wow. Had you played that stuff before?
Never.
So you had to learn
Never.
it.
Yeah. And that was the thing. I never said no.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, totally. And thankfully I was met with very gracious people that were like, oh, that's not quite it. But they would like help me find it,
Yeah.
No one was ever like, get out of here, kid, or anything like that.
But that's cool. I think that's the way you should learn that stuff. Like, as opposed to like learning, like practicing a bunch of samba stuff in case you have to use it someday. But it's like, how can you know, like it can't be authentic really that way?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many like, not versions, but like vernaculars of it.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word. Like you speak in a certain way among certain people, and in the same way you play certain kind of music a certain way with certain groups. So just because you hear kukum 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 kukum, that doesn't mean that's going to translate clear across the board. How are you going to lay it back, or how are you going to give it some ghost note, or are you going to use the bell here, or are you going to, there's so many things that it's a conversation rather than just like, this is how you play samba.
Yeah.
This
this bell pattern and this like syncopated thing, and can you do all these at the same time?
Right. Yeah.
That's wild. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I remember one gig in particular. The gentleman now is like my life mentor. But he was on percussion, and this was another kind of like party band, and we didn't meet for whatever reason as we were setting up, and then we jump right in. And here I am thinking I'm some badass playing cascara over here and like the clave right here, and I'm splashing my hi-hat and keeping that pattern
stuff,
on the,
man.
I'm like, doing all this stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, and here goes a crash, just because why, and James, I love him so much. He's like, he's the best. He's a towering fellow. And he's just cross arm over me to my left. and it's kind of like, what am I going to play? And I look at him, I'm like, oh, what do I do? And he's like, 16ths on the hi-hat, keep the bass drum the same. And I'm like, that's it? And we start playing that still during the tune, right? Like I'm like slowly fading all these cool parts that in my mind were like, I'm nailing it.
That's what you're there for.
Yeah. And I go to the 16th on the hi-hat and this Bayonne pattern sort of thing going. And he's playing perk, and the singer turns around with the biggest smile on his face. He's like, yeah, baby. And like comes up and compliments my playing. And I'm like, dude, I was playing less, way less, you know? And I looked at James and I was like, I don't know who you are, but how do I study with you? And he kind of just took me under his wing. And he was one of those guys that was very gracious and was like, okay, look, just because you can, it doesn't mean you should.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, oh, okay. And he's like, that Marco Miniman, you know, Thomas Lang stuff is super cool, but go see them with a band. See if they're doing that.
Right.
And sure enough, you know, like if it's a pop gig, they're where they need to be. You know, if it's their own project, then they're doing all that stuff. So it was just eye-opening, and he was super sweet on his way of teaching me that.
Well, that's such a huge lesson.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to learn it too, I think, because it's not like somebody is yelling at you or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, the other question that I would have is, like, when you were doing all that stuff at that time, do you think, would it have been as groovy as you thought it was with your perspective now? Right.
No.
So probably the groove improved when you simplified it.
Oh, big time, man.
Yeah.
Still to this day, I'll go into a session and I think I have this cool drum thing that I'm like, I'm going to use it. You know, I've been practicing. I've been, you know, honing my skill, and I'm all about it. And then I go in and I'm like, pop, pop, patatum. And they're like, dude, that was it. And I'm like, no, but I wanted to do this, you know, 5-stroke roll that led into that. And they're like, no, don't change a thing. That's the one. And I'm like, damn it. You know, so it's less is always more.
It's funny. Yeah. I had the one that sticks out for me, I had a song and it was like we were doing an EP and like this is the only recording I'm going to probably do this year, and I've got this big drum moment right in the middle of a song, and I've got this fill that I worked out but I can't quite play it up to speed. So we get in the studio and I just ruin the track at that point in the middle of the song every time. And then just wind up having to play something simpler. And because it was like this, like blah, 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 you know, kind of thing, and I wind up just being 16th notes around the kit, but it's fine, it works.
Yeah.
And that's what we went with, and now I don't care. But it is like it's so funny.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The one thing I do fight for in recordings, especially if it's like something that's going to be quantized, you know, nowadays. Everything has to fit a grid and fit, or at least not everything, but the stuff I've been a part of has to fit a certain format or a time or whatever. But I'll fight for flams. I'm like, no, man, you got to leave that flam in there. Don't go splicing that up.
You mean like between the kick and snare, or like
or just,
on the snare?
Just snare. Yeah, just
yeah.
snare. You know, anything like that. I feel like it's such a statement piece, and it's simple. It doesn't take anything from it. So
you need something.
Every now and then I'll fight for that.
Yeah.
But usually I'm just like, whatever, man. I'm here to serve the music. So
if that's what the gig is, for sure.
Yeah.
How do you
for me, most of them are. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about quantization and being quantized?
Everything has its time and place. Not like that, but you know, with if that's what the music calls for, or samples, you know, if things need to be layered for a certain reason. But I feel that the human touch to it, the conversation definitely suffers from it. You know, no matter what the piece. Like if you put on some Taylor Swift, right, and you listen to it as produced. And it's like, oh, okay, it's part of it. But then you listen to maybe what Aaron Sterling, how he laid it down, you know?
Sure.
It's like, oh, that's groovy, man.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a little bit of that might get lost, but it's part of it. It's the nature of the beast right now.
It is. Well, this is what I was thinking when hearing the album, because I was like surprised it was more acoustic than I expected, but it also is very electronic, just in a subtle way. But I know that it's all quantized and it's all like how it's put together.
Yeah, and there's guys that could do that very well. Like they could grit it without sucking the soul out of it. Yeah. So that's a thing too.
It's true. Yeah, and I mean. Yeah, you can do amazing things with it for sure. And I mean, you know, it's funny because I don't necessarily have that issue when listening to electronic music that is specifically electronic music.
Yeah.
But even then, I tend to like the stuff that's like a little bit wonky rhythmically anyway.
Sure.
But yeah, I feel similarly. I could do without it a lot of the time. I mean, sometimes I do it to myself if I'm recording myself, but I find, like, I don't know. It's like if you listen to Joni Mitchell or something, like you don't wish it was quantized.
Yeah.
If you think of a female folk singer or something.
Yeah, or you put on some Rolling Stones, you know, and then you try to. I use this app, and I'll use it when I play live just to see where my tempo's at. It's called Live BPM, and it just reads where your tempo's at. So if we're playing, it'll tell you a starting point, and then if there's a solo, it just charts or maps it out. And I love that because you could tell the push and pull. But if I've put it on with some Rolling Stones, I forget the song in particular, but it goes up like 7 BPM by the time it gets to the chorus, and then dips back down, and then goes right back up, and then it ends like 10 beats faster than it started. So, but when you hear it, you're not thinking about it. It just moves you. It feels good.
It just makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like a lot of, like, there's Zeppelin tunes that do that for sure. I got a DJ controller a few years ago, and Serato, and I like torrented, you know, like 1,500 disco songs or something. But I was so surprised because I was trying to mix them, and the tempos are sliding up and down, and I didn't. It made me feel so much better about my own playing when I, you know, like record something to a click, and I often will think that I'm like playing along to it rather than like right on top of it. But then you hear it back, and it's like, well, why couldn't I just hit it? Yeah. But I mean, it is the human thing.
Yeah, I've been trying to work on that in some sessions. I took a lesson, and it had to do a lot with grip. And so how you grip the stick, where you grip the stick, you'll start feeling like back. If the further back you are from your fulcrum, the more throw you have. So you're still playing on time, but it helps you put that like back beat, laying it back. You know, and if you want to play on top of it, at least for me, I like grip the stick a little tighter, and I'm more on top of the fulcrum, and then just start playing that. But it's totally like a tool thing for me. It's not like I don't play like that live, but I'll do it in the studio to get a certain vibe or feel.
Right. Why don't you play like that live?
Because I'll drop sticks. Yeah, I'm already terrible at that. I took a lesson with Dave Elitch. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yeah, I was going to ask, actually, because I saw the video. I was looking on your Instagram, and when you mentioned jumping rope earlier, pointing at my camera here, but the video that you had posted of with like the practice pad kit, I was like, I think I recognize that grip.
Yeah, and he was. I mean, when I injured my hand, they were like, "You may never have natural use of your thumb," and I just lost it. I'm just like, this is what I do for a living. So he helped me big time with just adjusting the grip, and it's something I'm still practicing to. I don't have it down, but then the different grips of it and playing on top of it or behind the fulcrum, that was from a different drummer, from Brendan Buckley, and like just
Cool.
getting a feel for that. And oh man, like that was between posture and grip with him, and then technique and just natural awareness of my body with Dave. It's something I continue to practice daily anytime I get behind the kit.
Cool. When did you study with Brendan Buckley? How did that happen?
I did the Guitar Center drum off thing for a few years.
That is on my list of questions. So let's maybe go there for a second. I also want to talk about Elitch a little bit because I just want to pick your brain a little bit. I took a lesson from him a couple of years ago. I went to LA. It was really cool, but the grip, I haven't totally got it. I've like, there's something's wrong. And I was like, is it the shape of his hands? Like, I'm a lot taller than he is.
No, he just messes you up, man. in the best way ever. He gets you to think about like this little switch, like from here to here, this like tiny little pinch, and your life is wrecked.
That's, like, I mean, it is though. Everything I was doing was like, inefficient. I'm not going to say wrong, but definitely inefficient. Like but posture is a huge one.
Yeah. So posture, I studied that with Brendan. And so through the drum off, it was a crazy experience. That was my drum school for the longest time.
How do you get involved with that? Because I've seen the YouTube videos, but we don't have Guitar Center here in Canada. So,
well, unfortunately, it's no longer a thing. But here it was, it started around August or so, and you would just sign up and you had like your store competition, store preliminaries, and then your district. And so it was kind of the drummer's American Idol, you know?
Yeah, right.
It's like per city, and then those cities battle, and then that turns into the district, and then it was something like from 5,000 to 5 when I was competing. But I never did it to try to win anything. And the times that I did it in that manner, I was always devastated. And I would walk away like, I'm never playing drums again. I hate this. And so
Is that because of the result or because of like what you went through to get there or what?
Everything. Yeah, both.
Yeah.
Both. So, it was there was always only two kinds of drummers. The ones, because I was using it as a way to learn, I would ask questions, and one of two things would happen. The dudes would be like, oh yeah, man, this is just, a flam 5. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. And they would break it down. Or it was the other dude that would be like, oh man, that's my lick. I can't. And I'm like, get out of here, And so for me, when I got that answer, that was fuel for the fire. I was like, okay, well, I'll see you next year with your lick, and I would come back and I would play it, I would just try everything I could because I'm stubborn. And when someone tells me I can't do something, I'm like, oh, okay, we'll see.
We'll see. I'll see you when I do it.
Yeah. So that for me, it was this drum lesson thing. But then whenever I started taking it as a competition, it kind of had more value than it was fun. And then I put more pressure on myself, and I didn't win, so I must not be good, or I'm not as good as this guy, and really took it to heart. And
that was my life in music school.
Yeah, like we're conditioned to think that way for some reason, and it's like, no, it's art, man. Like you have a voice. Like you think Charlie Parker's like pissed off that Steve Gadd's got this gig. No, everyone's got their place, and Steve Gadd's not trying to think less or more because he's not on the Rolling Stones albums. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. And I think
It just started. Oh no! It just started raining real bad. Sorry.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll move.
Oh, that sucks.
Nah, I was afraid it was going to happen, but I was hoping to wait it out a little bit.
Oh no. Are you gonna have to go?
No. There's a little bridge right here. It's all
Oh, okay.
good.
Cool. Are you on Wi-Fi? Are we just killing your data plan right now?
Oh, it's all good. No. Yeah.
Oh,
There we
I
go.
appreciate it.
Oh, heck yeah, man. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you, and likewise. Yeah, I think it's like the thing is that you just want to be out doing it. I think part of it, for me anyway, with the music school thing, like I went to a music school in a small town, so there wasn't much of a scene outside of, there was like a jam band scene, and then there was like the music school thing, and then my friends and I started a punk band, and we were like the only punk band in town. There was like maybe up to 3 at one point. But it was funny because I was talking to somebody recently, and I hadn't thought about it in years. But my friend was like, "Yeah, man, you guys would play those shows, and like all these people would come out." I was like, "Oh." Like to me it was just our friends, like
Right.
It was like having a house party in a bar or something, and everybody just came out. But the thing that is a bummer about it is the fact that there's no scene outside of what you're doing, or you know what I mean. It's like if you fail at the contest, what is there outside of that, versus if you're just out in the world playing?
Yeah, and just realizing that there is life outside of that.
Yeah.
You know? It was a huge moment for me because I had experienced it with working at studios before. But when this contest started running my mind, there was nothing else that existed. It was so weird,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
But yeah, so I tried a few more years and tried to get out of my head about it. And then actually the year I won, I wasn't gonna compete.
Well, I watched that
signed me
video
up.
the other day. Yeah, and you look so relaxed and confident.
It was me just enjoying what I was doing.
Uh-huh.
And the other drummers are amazing. You know, I'm just like, there's no way I'm gonna, you know, I couldn't shine this dude's shoes. Like, no way. And it was just, there was luck, there was preparation, and then I was just having fun.
Oh, you played great, but you're
Thanks, man.
obviously having fun. Oh, you don't need to thank me. It's well documented, but it is very clear that you're enjoying yourself too.
Yeah. And that was the changing point for me, the mentality of it, you know. I'd had a routine down because I try to make it a piece. I try to make it kind of like a song. There's an intro, there's this first groove, then it built, and then it got here. But then there were in between, that's when I would freestyle or whatever. And that part would change from part or session of the contest.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, it was one of those moments like, I'm just going to do this, and whatever happens, happens. I'm just going to enjoy it. And through that, I got to meet Brendan and Dave and a ton of other guys that I was always admiring what they did, following their career, and then just getting to talk to them like this on a human level, you know?
Right.
So
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, it's all good.
I was going to say, how did that lead to meeting those guys?
At the finals, they always took place in LA. And so they were either part of the judges, or they were just there to enjoy the finals. Were really cool because it was more than a contest. It was like a concert with a contest sprinkled in. Right. So they had like drum duets between one of my favorites was Simon Phillips and Gavin Harrison. And
is Gavin Harrison Porcupine Tree?
Yeah.
Yeah, wild.
And dude, like the stuff they played, it was so cool. Like you would swear there was an entire band out there, and it was just these two guys that tuned their drums like to specific notes, and we're just like feeding off of each other. It was so cool, so cool.
Wild.
Yeah,
That's interesting. Have you ever thought about moving to LA?
I did for a little while. Yeah. I moved out there, and it was another learning experience for me. It didn't quite work out how I wanted it to, but I do miss it, man. Like I there's something about the Pacific for me. I don't know. I never thought. I was like, oh, Acapulco is on the Pacific side. Maybe I just have a connection there.
Right.
But yeah, I loved it. Being out there, maybe it'll happen again, maybe not, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I've been out there for a little bit.
Cool. I've only been there once.
Yeah.
I'm on the opposite side of the continent and in a different country. And it's funny in Canada where in the US, like if you're already in the country, it's like it is not a place that it would, like now it would,
Mm-hmm.
but like when I was younger, it never even seemed like almost like a place that like doesn't exist in the real world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I went there a couple of years ago and I took a lesson from Dave. I had never heard of him. My friend Mike, who I actually interviewed for the first episode of this show, had been talking about, he had taken a trip up there, down there, I should say. Not long before, and he had taken lessons with him and Thomas Pridgeon, and he's like, Dave Elitch was like drum life changing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I took one while I was down there, and I still, like I say, I haven't practiced this enough, but pretty interesting dude.
Yeah. He's super cool, and just the way I took a lesson with him while I was out on tour again to follow up.
Mm-hmm.
And even talking like this, he's like, all right, put your phone down, get a pad. And in the back of the van, I'm playing. He's like, no. Move your finger this way. And, oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, there it is. All right. Sorry. There's a drop that went right on the camera.
Oh, no.
So yeah, he, even through the phone, he could tell what was going on. And I'm like, dude, you are nuts.
He's that tuned in. Yeah.
Yeah. It's super cool.
I mean, that makes, it's funny. I haven't, he was like, this is, I just want to turn some light bulbs on and hit me up in a month. And I didn't do it because I spent all my money going to LA.
Yeah.
But that makes sense though, hearing that, like, well, no wonder, because I'm just like really like approximating it, but that's the issue. But so Brendan Buckley, a friend of mine, met him too. He was doing something in Halifax. I don't know what, because he plays with Shakira, right? But he plays with tons of people,
right?
Perhaps.
Yeah. He's all over. He's an incredible drummer, and like just the way he grooves, man. Like I can't even describe it. Like, I've heard him on several records, and I try to copy what he does, just because it feels so good. And it's not, I don't know, obviously technique and all of that has to do with it, but it's not the most technical thing. He's not like, playing 1916 between the top of his body and the bottom, limbs.
Yeah.
It's just the way he hits the drum and where that ghost note is, and it's so controlled, but it's just right. So I really dug studying with him.
Cool. So who else does he play with? Like what records could you recommend?
There's one of my favorites is this guy from Miami, or I think he lives in Miami, Fulano.
Okay.
Fulano. And he I'll email you his.
I was to say I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, I'll email you the link because I don't know.
Oh, amazing! Thank you.
I don't know the name of the record, but
Uh-huh.
I have it on my iTunes, and I could see the cover. It's a yellow cover,
Yeah.
and dude's kind of like walking, and just the way the groove starts, like the song one, it's him on a cross stick, and it's just like this super chill, but
Uh-huh.
he's playing these ghost notes with his fingertips in between the cross stick happening, and it just fills the right amount of space.
Can you do that?
I've tried to. I don't have
I've
it.
tried to too.
Yeah, I don't
man.
have it down. I was doing an album last week or the week before, and I got to put a little bit of that stank on it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it when you hear this song, if you check it out, it's like the speed and the accuracy. I don't have that down. I could do it on a slow ballady thing, you know?
I can do it like using my entire hand as one thing, but to use multiple fingers, like is even like you watch Bernard Purdy or somebody, like he's doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But like individual fingers, I do not have that.
Yeah, I could get some of that. It's just dropping the stick right where I want, when I want.
Right.
Yeah.
I just got to like let that like flow through my brain for a second. Yeah, it's heavy, man. It's like that is such the thing that you find, and I guess it's maturity as a player, but I'm always kind of blown away by that, how, you know, when I was younger, I thought it was about filling as much space as just like doing as much as fast as I could, and that was the point. And then as you get more experience, you realize there just is so much possibility within like the space and the texture of the notes.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was listening to an interview with Steve Jordan, and he was talking about the length of a quarter note. And I had never thought of it, but he was saying, if you're playing timpani, then you hit that timpani and you sustain the note and then you mute it. But on a traditional kit, you don't do that. But that concept
decays when it's over. When it's over,
yeah. But that concept still remains. So understanding the value of a quarter note and then playing, respecting that. I was like, whoa. So like the bass drum, you know, where that falls, and then now you start seeing that quarter note space as an actual, or at least I did, as a thing.
Yeah, rather than like you hit it once and it's
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one thing for me that just recently I was like, whoa.
That is interesting. I remember hearing, and this is like several years ago now, but this is from a catalog, but it's something that I had never thought of. They put out the Phil Rudd signature drum kit, AC/DC guy.
Yeah.
They were these massive drums, and the thing was saying they're this big size because he's playing, like, he wants to let his notes ring for a long time. Yeah. And that had never occurred to me because he's famously as the like until you know something, you think he's like I had a friend who say he's got the easiest job in rock and roll, Phil Rudd. But, he somehow is in this mega successful band, and they've had other drummers, and they got him back. I don't know if he's with them now because he like put a hit out on somebody a few years ago, and that's like the last I heard of him.
I don't follow up with that. I'm like, oh.
Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I'll have to cut that too.
Yeah, you have control over that. but yeah, it starts there, then it comes back to us laughing, just staring like, ah. Yeah. No, but I don't know. There's a lot of things. I'm trying to get concepts like that, and make them my own. But then there's other things like how long a drum resonates and like all that stuff I hate.
Really? I don't really think about it, but yeah.
Yeah, I like, the shell is gonna sing for the longest time. I'm like, who cares? You're gonna show up to a venue, and then front of house is gonna be like, hey, do you have any gaff? Do you have moon gel? Can you dampen that?
Yeah.
And here we are spending like thousands and thousands of dollars extra for this feature that we never want.
Right. Okay. So on that note, what is the deal with bearing edges? Do you care? What is that all about?
I mean, it does have a sound. There is a thing. It does change, but it just depends on application, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There are things that sound vintagey because the bearing edge is rounded over a baseball bat or whatever. But I'm not going to sit there and like ask for a 35 over here and then, on my resonant, can you do a sharp 45? Because I really want that pure. Get out of here. Get out of here. Just play drums. You hit them.
Well, this is the thing. Like, I know that it does something, but it's like something I read about. I'll see the numbers and they're like, "Ooh, I'm supposed to know what that is," and I don't.
Yeah, no. Or like, the drum dial, or like this.
Yeah, have you used one?
I have,
Yeah.
But then I started analyzing it. I'm like, okay, so wait a minute. I'm using the same tension around this piece of plastic because that's what I'm measuring.
Mm-hmm.
But then if we're thinking about the bearing edge, that could be in contact, or it could not be because I'm just stretching the piece of plastic.
Yep.
So I'm never really tuning my drum.
No.
I'm just adding tension evenly across this piece of plastic.
Yeah, it's not a musical way of doing it, and it's not like there are exactly like you say. There's so many possible variables within the shell itself. Like, you don't all you're really guaranteeing is that I don't know. It's like the tension is. It's like we played a show once, and there was like the vocals were really dry. Couldn't tell on stage, but my friend who's a recording engineer was in the audience, and it was like this, there weren't a lot of people at this venue. It was like a radio show that we thought would be well attended and wasn't. But anyhow, my friend walked over to the guy who was like mixing it, and he's like, he knew our singer liked a lot of delay on his vocals, so he's like, he asked him to put some delay on it, and the dude working the board is like, oh no, it says right here I've got a lot. And he like showed him there's like a digital screen. Yeah. It's like, but you can't hear it.
Yeah. Well, and tying it back to the gridding everything, so you can see where it lines up, and you can see but are you using your ears for it? That is more valuable. I have this old Ludwig that has a cracked shell, and I've tried to put it back together as best I could, but man, it sounds so good. And a drum head takes about, I don't know, a good month to like sit right.
Yeah.
But when it does, oh man, it's one of my favorite sounding kits, and it's broken, Yeah. And it's like, but it's one of those things where I've learned to appreciate the sound, the value in sound now, more than what I'm sold,
Sure. And is it would fixing it change the sound, or is
probably.
It just
it probably would, because where the shell's cracking, maybe it has the right decay, and that may change. It may crack too much, and then it sounds like garbage.
Yeah.
But I'll cross that bridge when I get there.
Sure.
Right now I dig how it sounds, and it's been sounding good for the past 4 or 5 years. So yeah, I dig it. But before that, I really bought into the idea of the shell construction, and it's perfectly round. And if you want your drums to stay in tune and you want the most resonance, I'm like, yeah, please.
Sure.
And then I started playing live and getting more aware of practical situation and practicality of those features. I'm like, I don't need this, don't need that, don't need this,
A lot of the time you don't want a drum that's so resonant that it actually has a tone if you're in the midst of a band. It sounds cool and you're playing on your own.
Right. Or even within itself, if you've got two up, one down, or two up, two down, and you're hitting one, but the other one's got a little bit of a sympathy buzz or some resonance to it.
Right.
What do? You're going to dampen it. You're going to mute it. You're going to take that out. So I've just started becoming more aware of that. I'm like, I'm not buying any more of that stuff.
Sure. So are you picky with tuning at this point?
I am. I'll tune for the room, and then if I'm using in-ears and I know the front of house guy is we're similar in that, then I'll tune the drum with my in-ears in so that I can hear what they're capturing, because that oftentimes is going to be very different than what I hear directly on the drum.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I just finished doing, I'm working right now at a performing arts school here in St. John, and we just finished doing rock camp. And so we can't do, normally they would do a show, but this year we can't. So we recorded everything, and none of us is really a recording engineer. All of us have a bit of experience. So they had like a Zoom R16, and I just hooked it into my laptop, and like a couple of room mics direct out from the bass amp and vocal mics. And there's a bunch of weird things that because there wasn't really a monitor situation, we didn't have headphones for everybody, so we had a wedge. But we could either direct monitor it so it got all the mics, so it would catch the room mics too, which we didn't want. You just want the vocalists to be able to hear themselves. So we ran it through the recording software, but that means there's a latency. So now there's a bit of a delay coming out of this wedge, and it's in the room mics.
Yeah.
And the room mics are bleeding, or the room is bleeding into the vocals. But anyhow, there's one tune where when the bass and the keys hit a G at the same time, there's just this boom that like you couldn't hear in the room, but it's on the recording.
Oh man, yeah. How much happens in between, even like your microphone and your cable, and then that to your headphones, depending on your interface, like all of these variables, we have to take into account. And then playing live, you have to do it on the spot,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, the nice thing is, like, you don't have time to worry about it in a way. It's like you get it as good as you can.
Yeah. The hard part is like playing festivals and wanting to be comfortable, but then you can't hear what you normally would want to hear, or you've got too much feedback, and trying to troubleshoot that stuff can really be draining, and then put you in a weird funk right before you perform.
Well, yeah, and especially, and it's like, everything's in a hurry, and outdoors can be weird anyway because there's no walls to bounce stuff off of, and like different crew, different people.
Yeah. Yeah, man, there's tons of that.
Yeah. Do you miss it right now though?
I do. There's elements to it that the camaraderie, and not even between the band, but like going and saying thank you to a sound guy and to monitor world, and then being like, oh dude, usually we don't get thanked, or guys that are like, oh, you're going to use us? Heck yeah. We've been waiting for this, like that person to person interaction. I miss a lot.
Yeah.
But it's also been cool to be home for a little bit and to exercise and get to jog and stuff I don't normally get to do,
Sure.
Work on my mindset, fight mosquitoes, all that stuff.
Yeah. I've certainly have like, as much as there are definitely things I miss, I've enjoyed the break for sure. One thing I was going to say too, the thing that I find is always fun about those situations, especially with festivals, is like you show up and then you run into somebody, you're like, oh, you're here? And maybe it's like somebody who is just like hanging out with somebody who's like, there's no reason you would expect them to be here, or they're working backstage or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, again, realizing how small of a community and how tight of a circle it is, it really brings value to it, you know?
Yeah.
Or it did for me, has for me.
Well, I mean, it has for me too, and it's like, you know, it's in some ways it's like the thing that keeps you going. All right, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I would be remiss if I did not ask you about playing with Black Flag. So,
Yeah.
how did that come about?
I had worked on a project with Mike, the lead singer.
Yeah,
and,
right. So, what was that project? As I think I saw a video of that too.
The Texas New Arms. So he had done his recording, and when he came through Texas, a buddy of mine connected me with him, and we hit it off, and it was cool. And I had no idea it was going to lead anywhere. With that band, we went to Norway, and we played out there. It was awesome.
Cool.
And it was super cool. But I figured that's what it would be. And if he needed me again, then I was out of service. Little did I know that the next call was going to be for Black Flag. And yeah, he was the connect, and like he's the reason why I got in.
Wild. So he was like, I got this drummer, or
Yeah, I mean, I went through auditions, and ultimately it was Greg's call. Greg Dinn, you know, the founding member, and he was amazing too. When he came in, he was on bass, and so I'm drumming and he's on bass, and we were just jamming, just seeing how we communicated in a musical setting, and it just kind of went from there. And it was supposed to be a few gigs here and there, and then more and more and more and more were added on.
Yeah.
And it was the coolest, most surreal thing. And like that, it took off and then stopped at the same time. You know?
Right. Was it stopped by COVID, or just like that was, Yeah,
no, we still have, or had dates through 2021 coming in. So yeah, it was very much, we were coming in from South America and didn't know if we were going to be, they were talking about shutting down the borders, and a lot of people were getting stuck. We were coming in from Peru. And so then what were we going to do? Trying to get into Mexico or trying to get into the US, and then we couldn't all find flights to the same place. What were we, you know, so everyone was just trying to sort things out, and luckily we got back home. But yeah, man, COVID kind of put the stop on that real quick.
It shut everything down in a hurry. Like it was it was so fast.
Yeah.
It was the like thing sort of you heard about it, but that's not like, that's like a problem that I don't really have to worry about, and then it's my problem, like all of a sudden.
Dude, I came back to town, and immediately went to an urgent care, and I was like, I've been through these countries, and I need you to. At the time, they didn't have the test, right? They're just like, it hadn't been developed or whatever. I guess early March here, and they did chest X-rays and did all this stuff, and they were like, nope, you're good. You seem healthy. And I was like, okay, thanks. Bye. See you in 2 weeks, you know, and reading up, and
that's,
everything was so crazy, you know?
Yeah. That's what we thought. Well, and being in airports too. Yeah, I know. And we thought it was like 2 weeks. We'll shut everything down. Now, did you think you were like, do you mean like you were going to self-isolate for 2 weeks? God, I don't even want to talk about this. It's like, it's the worst.
No, well, I didn't want to be around my family. They're a little older in age. And so I came in, drove straight there, and I was like, I'll go rent a hotel room or whatever I need to do, just to play it safe.
Yep.
I didn't have to do that, but that's where my mind was at. And so it was kind of a trip to go from touring, you know, we're jamming, we're having fun, we're flying here and there, to
like playing this high octane music to like crowds who are just like going crazy.
Yeah. To coming home, and maybe I won't get to see my folks for the next few weeks. And yeah. So, but luckily that wasn't the case.
No kidding. I had a friend who was here and he was just up like vacationing, and then his parents had been in Florida and they got back, and he wound up living with us for a while because they, he couldn't go over there for 2 weeks or didn't want to.
Yeah.
Similar kind of situation. Yeah, that sucks, man.
Yeah, it's a trip.
Yeah, that's the thing I always have to remind myself is like it sucks for the entire world. It's like I can complain about my problems. I haven't lost anyone or anything like that. Anyhow,
yeah.
So that's cool. So you had a big 2019 with those guys. You're listed on the Wikipedia page as the drummer.
I know. Yeah. Someone asked me like, "Oh, so you're like in the band?" I'm like, "That's what Wikipedia says."
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
That's cool. So that's interesting. I didn't know what the deal was with the band, whether it was like kind of a revolving cast of characters, and Greg was like the one constant guy. One question I had about his playing in particular, though, is like how much of it is improvised versus written out?
Well, okay. So first, he writes all the music and lyrics and all that. So like, there are members that come in and out, but the way I see it and the way from what I've seen, it's like Greg is Black
He
Flag,
is the band,
you know? Yeah. He's the soul guy.
Well, and throughout the band's history, like there have been different members.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, with him like writing all that stuff, there is a sense of what I was learning from the album wasn't always what I ended up playing.
Right.
Sometimes it was a different interpretation, and that's what I dug, was that it was, if we got comfortable, then let's change it up and let's try something new, so that it didn't get so repetitive that it was mindless.
Sure, of course. Well, because
just be present.
Well, it's such interesting music in that way. He's got such an interesting style and just like a way of, like not really like, I don't know if he comes to it from theory or what, but he like finds the notes that are like the in between where you're supposed to play that, but he just knows how to hit them.
Yeah. He's got this feel. Like there was a couple of tunes that it was really interesting how he would play in between parts. Like it wasn't a 16th note. It wasn't a 32nd note. It was just, he wanted me here and he was going to move over here. And at first I was trying hard to like match him or like either make it a 8th note over, a 16th note over. And he's like, no, that's not it. Just stay here. And so it was really, really cool to grow in that regard to, after wanting and being asked to listen to a band as a whole and like find a way to tighten us up,
Yeah.
His way of tightening us up was, hey, you don't move from here no matter what. We'll fit to that.
Oh, neat. So it's like it's entirely a feel thing, it sounds like.
There's definitely both. I mean, I never sat there and chatted theory with him. Yeah. But our conversations about like what to play was very much, what does it feel like? Is it moving you, or does it feel restricted or like just off? You know, how does it why isn't it on in that place?
Interesting.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, well, because it's a band. So, and I found with like, I grew up in the 90s, and so I was used to a certain amount of like sheen and compression. Like I think everything that came after Nevermind had a certain sound. So kind of older punk bands, like I knew that they were, that I should respect like bands like Black Flag or Minor Threat, but they never really, I kind of got into them after the fact, and I was always surprised. Like Minor Threat was the first one where I remember hearing them and being like, whoa, these guys are actually pretty good. Like, of course. The Dead Kennedys were like the only one, and the Misfits were the only ones that kind of made it through. But Black Flag were one, especially because, purely the sound of the recordings, I just like, you assume that it's just like rough and they can't really play or whatever. But then I remember like listening to it kind of more recently and being like, man, this band is really tight and the arrangements
Yeah.
are complicated. Like they're not
Yeah.
simple tunes.
Yeah, there was a couple that like it shifted meters, but again, it wasn't like it went into this. It didn't fit into a certain time. It had a feel, and it wasn't 4/4 anymore. And it just happened in this section, and it was so cool to have to think of it in that way. And Greg was just like, "That's just how I wrote it."
Right.
Oh man! Like, all right.
Well, it's a funny thing too about just like playing with guitar players in general, doing odd time stuff where it's like, well, it's just this pattern that I do, and it happens to be in an odd meter,
right?
Whereas this playing drums, you got to figure out how to like play through it.
Yeah.
Man, that's interesting. And okay, cool. And my one other Black Flag gotta know question is, do you play TV Party? And if so, do you shout out the names of current TV shows?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, we played TV Party, and Mike was he added I think it was like Stranger Things.
Good.
What was the other one? The Walking Dead, maybe.
Yeah.
He like, Friends. Friends was another one.
That's a great one,
dude. It was so cool, and then like to see the people just like just lose it right as it started going. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. That was one of the fun ones on the set.
It is a fun. Well, because another thing that I find interesting about that band is like, it's so like lyrically can be like dark and intense. Sometimes, but at the same time, there's just this element of fun that goes through it too.
Yeah, a lot of tongue-in-cheek sort of thing too. It's like, and however you want to interpret it, it's up to you.
Sure, yeah, fair enough.
So,
and I think there is like part of like the catharsis is just being like, like being able to get energetic and not be like stuck in a pit. Yeah,
you get to make it your own. It means something to you, and that's something I respected about that. From the get go, it was Greg kind of let people interpret it as they wished, and would encourage that. It was cool.
That is super cool, and I think it's like how to make it like remain alive, like to keep life in it.
Yeah, totally.
But it's funny. My wife has been watching the reboot of Dynasty recently, and I haven't watched it. But like that is the show always makes me think of that song, just Dynasty.
Yeah, man, dude. Yeah, Mike got to throw in like his take on it. Game of Thrones.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it was super cool, man. Super cool. Yeah.
All right. That's so funny. All right. It's been close to 2 hours. I think I've probably. What do you think? Do we keep going? Do you want to break?
Yeah. We could pick it back up another time. Whatever you want to do. Yeah. Time flies. 2 hours.
Yeah. It's an hour and 45.
Right on.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this, man. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me.
A true pleasure.
Likewise, man. It's so cool to connect and chat about this stuff.
All right, fun times, my friends. Huge thanks to Isaias for being here. You can find him at Isaias Gil on Instagram, Isaias Gil 9 on Twitter. You can find me at learndrums.ca, learndrums on Instagram. I recently reactivated my Twitter. I had a personal one. I changed it over to be learndrums.ca, spelled out DOTCA. And the idea that I thought was really hilarious was I used my little drum face logo, and I decided that the tweets would be not from me, but from Drum God. So, like, the god of drumming. Just, thou shalt not wank. Etc. Anyhow, thanks for being here. If you like the show, tell a friend. You can rate us, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Apparently that helps. Oh, and huge thanks to Isaias' publicist, Wendy Ford, too, for making this happen. All right, we got another fun one coming up for you in 2 weeks' time. Bye for now.